For a normal person, it is completely reasonable to own a first aid kit or even a fire extinguisher, because although it is incredibly unlikely that you'll ever need it, the consequence for not having it when you need it is actually quite devastating. And there are many other risks that are out there, but the likelihood of it happening is pretty low. But again, if it were to happen, the consequence is pretty high. And some of these low probability, high consequence risks include, but are not limited to, nuclear war, civil unrest, asteroid strikes, toilet paper shortages, and a massive volcano and/or earthquake. And so to the super rich, having access to a doomsday bunker is exactly the same to them as what owning a first aid kit or a fire extinguisher is to us. Now, as far as the super wealthy in regards to who has what, this is a question that is not easily answered, and that is because the best defense that a bunker can have is secrecy. No one can raid or pillage a bunker if people just do not even know that it exists in the first place. But although there is no hard evidence that such bunkers exist all over the world, there is quite a lot of circumstantial evidence to indicate that there actually is quite a big network of these bunkers. So to start with, in 2017, LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman told The New Yorker that he believes that approximately 50% of Silicon Valley's tech billionaires have some kind of doomsday or apocalypse insurance plan. So although it is pretty much impossible to find out who has what plans in place, we can at least look at the menu for what these billionaires can choose to buy from. And so the three big commonly used options that seem to be on offer is the remote hideout, the communal bunker, or the underground bomb shelter that's below your house. And then at the end of this video, I'll also talk about an option that the Finnish government has done, because holy cow, it is epic. First, or to start off with, we'll talk about remote hideouts. So on March 27, 2020, the owner of the world's 19th most expensive yacht, Saudi national Nasser Rashid, had his private jet fly him to Christchurch right at the peak of the COVID pandemic and right after New Zealand closed itself off from the rest of the world. And also remember, this is 2020, this is before vaccines existed, and it's also a time when the hospital morgues are basically overflowing. And somehow, this Saudi national had permission from the New Zealand government to enter into the country when no one else could get permission. But as for where he went in New Zealand after his plane landed, nobody actually knows. And then there is Peter Thiel. Now he is an early investor from both Facebook and PayPal, and because of this he is a multi-billionaire. So Peter purchased a Queenstown mansion and then he applied for New Zealand citizenship. And within 12 days of doing this, he was given a New Zealand passport. And just to put some reference to that, it takes a normal person 1,300 days to get that passport approved. So it seems that Queenstown in New Zealand has become a bit of a popular spot for apocalypse insurance amongst the super wealthy in Silicon Valley. In fact, it has become so popular that there have been times that their airfield has had more private billionaire jets than what this video has likes or subscribes. As far as who exactly has what in Queenstown in New Zealand, again, there's no way to really know. And Vice News actually did a very thorough investigation in this, because in order to build an underground dwelling there, you do need council approval. And when they looked for these council approvals, pretty much couldn't find any approved plans for these underground bunkers. But that does not actually confirm that there isn't any fallout shelters there. And this is for a couple of reasons. So one of these reasons being is that the council approval could have been for a garage or just a general storage room. I mean, all it really needs is running water and electricity. And then afterwards they can retrofit it to have all the doomsday insurance amenities that one might need. And furthermore to this, these mansions are very far spread apart and it'll be very easy for them to build an underground structure that is not council approved and get away with it because you're just too far away from any prying eyes. And also, there's a third point that I need to raise about this as well. And this third point being is that if you actually are in Queenstown, you probably don't even need an underground fallout shelter, because Queenstown is just so far away from the dramas of the rest of the world that they could probably be completely fine just living above the ground and just living off the land with the rest of the population. I mean, if there were to be a nuclear war in the Northern Hemisphere, New Zealand would pretty much be the last country in the world to feel the effects of it. And so now when you're not looking so much for underground bunkers and you're just looking for above ground mansions that exist in New Zealand that are owned by the super rich from either the United States or Europe, the circumstantial evidence suddenly becomes much stronger for the case of Queenstown being a doomsday bunker utopia. And this is because Queenstown is basically full of multi-million-dollar mansions, whilst the local population struggle with a housing shortage. and these multi-million-dollar mansions just basically sit empty all year. And so, that's New Zealand. But what other options exist for the super rich? Well, in 2008, 54-year-old Larry Hall decided to buy a former intercontinental ballistic missile silo in Kansas for $300,000. Anyway, fast forward 6 years, and $20 million, and he now has a shelter that can sustain 75 people for 5 years. Now it has an exercise room, a library, a spa, a theatre, a lounge, and a swimming pool. And so, if someone wanted to, they could actually watch the Twilight Saga over and over again on repeat for 5 years. I'm not saying that's personally what I'll do, I'm just saying that if someone wanted to do that, they could. Anyway, you can be one of those 75 people for between 1.5 to 4.5 million US dollars, and the majority of its costings in order to get one of these lucky 75 spots, it actually goes towards the life support systems as opposed to the luxury fittings that are actually inside the shelter. So this 15-story structure can withstand a 2,000 mile per hour, which is 3,218 kilometer per hour shockwave, which pretty much means it'll survive a shockwave from a nuclear bomb. And it also uses tilapia fish tanks and a combination of a hydroponic system that can grow vegetables. It has a combination of 5 power systems, one being a wind turbine, 2 being diesel generators, another being a grid connection, and the last being a battery. And they have enough diesel fuel to last him for 2.5 years. And so when asked about his clientele, Larry stated that their interest seemed to spike every time that there's a major news event such as North Korea or Iran, or even Obama getting elected or Trump getting elected. But political opinions and scary headlines aside, Larry stated that 80% of his clientele are actually parents, and they bought these shelters because of a desire to protect their children. And in fact, he has received so much demand and so much interest, he's actually expanded now to build multiple shelters. And with this surge in demand, Larry is by far no means the only property developer who is specializing in apocalypse insurance. So also in 2008, a man by the name of Robert Vicino started up the Vivos project, and Vivos being Latin for life. And he is responsible for the construction of numerous dwellings as well. So they include the Vicino Indiana, and that's it's 80 people for 1 year with clothing, food and amenities supplied. It also includes the Vivos Europa 1, which is in Rostock, Germany, so there's a big market over there for it as well. And it has luxury shelters for 1,000 people, storage for cultural treasures, and a gene bank for plants and animals. There's also the Vivos Export in South Dakota. Now this is a former US Army ammo dump, and each of these little shelters can fit 24 people, and it has supplies that can last for 1 year. And so in order to get a 99-year lease into one of these bunkers, it costs $45,000, and to maintain it, it costs $1,100 per year. And I should mention as well that these bunkers contain fresh water filters, air purifying filters, the ability to grow fresh food, and some even have gyms and jails in case any of the survivors go a little bit stir crazy. And so that is a second option that is available to the super rich. And there's one massively obvious flaw that is quite present with both of these options. And that is that when there is civil unrest or when there is nuclear war, you can reasonably assume that there isn't going to be much warning about it, meaning that by the time you found out about it, the airports would be overflowing or chaotic and flying out of the country would not be an option. Furthermore, driving out of the city would not be an option either because all the roads would be clogged with everyone else trying to get out. And some estimates for when you'll be warned about a nuclear strike put the time between the warning to the actual nuclear strike happening for as little as 4 minutes. And if you're trying to protect yourself against civil unrest, well, good luck trying to get to an airport. So that now brings us to local options, or options that may be hidden within your own backyard or under your house. And this is where Texan Gary Lynch from Rising S Bunkers comes in. So he does custom jobs for bunkers, where they can be built from scratch or added onto existing dwellings. Now, his templates for his designs range from anywhere from $45,000 through to $10 million. And by the way, this does not actually include the installation price, this is just purely for the structure itself that they're going to plonk into place. And so with a price range between $10 million to $45,000, he obviously has a very wide target market in mind. And so now with that been mentioned, that pretty much covers all of the options that we know about that are tailored towards individuals. But what if a government or a country wanted to be proactive? Well, to my surprise, this has actually been done. And no, I'm not talking about the concept of using a city's underground rail system as a double-up purpose to act as a bomb shelter, although Moscow, Beijing and London do have such infrastructure in place. Now, what I'm talking about here is specifically made bomb shelters that were made only to act as a shelter for the apocalypse. And this nation is Finland. Finland have been on the receiving end of Russian aggression since way before Poland or Ukraine made it fashionable. And it's because of this that Finland, and particularly Helsinki, have structures that are built 30 meters into 2 million-year-old bedrock under the ground. Now, each of these bunkers can hold 6,000 people, and there are 60 of them scattered throughout Helsinki, not to mention more scattered around other parts of Finland. So Finland has a population of 5.5 million, but these bunkers can fit 3.5 million of those people. So now if you're wondering about what about the other 2 million people? Well, the majority of these 2 million people live in more remote areas and are very unlikely to be on the receiving end of a nuclear strike. And so with these bunkers, that's quite a big claim to say that you can have so many people within such a short amount of time, and when they're not being used, they're actually dormant and doing nothing. Well, the Finnish government will actually need 72 hours to actually get these bunkers up and running as far as unfolding all the hospital beds and getting everything good to go. But still, this is an incredible project, and well done to the Finns for thinking ahead and having a way to protect their entire population, as opposed to pretty much every other country on the planet, which is just saying, yeah, apart from the highest of the high government officials, everyone fend for yourselves. So anyway, on that note, I'll start winding this video up. So unless you're super rich, Finnish, or a Kiwi, we will not be surviving the nuclear apocalypse. And I cannot think of a better possible way to end a YouTube video on, so thanks for watching.